Hi, I'm James, and this is Groovebox Music Theory. So far, we've learned all about the major and minor chords and their inversions and arrangement, but like I've mentioned, there's usually more to a chord than just major or minor. Typically, though, it's easiest to figure out those other chords by just starting from a major or minor chord. So, depending on the genre that you're playing, you may have already been ignoring a lot of sevenths or something, but hopefully I'll at least give you some ways of playing a few of those in this video, and then hopefully that'll give you the skill set to look up those chords in the future and play them by figuring out how they differ from a major or a minor chord. This will also give you ideas of how you could mix up chord progressions in your own original music by, substituting maybe a seventh chord here or there, or maybe a suspended chord, whatever it might be. So I'm going to teach you how to build major seventh chords, minor seventh chords, suspensions, diminished and augmented chords based on what we know about major and minor chords. So let's go to the keyboard. Let's first start off talking about suspended chords. Now, these are kind of interesting because if you take a major chord, like this C major chord, like I said before, you have this 1 and the 5, and then the 3 is going to determine if it's major or minor. Well, if you play a suspended chord, you don't actually commit to one or the other. You just play this fourth instead of the 3, the major or minor third. So in this case, I would be playing the C, F, and G. One way you could think about this is if you know where your 5 is, count down, make there only one semitone in between the 5 and the 4. There you go. There's a suspended chord. These are really common in songs that have guitar. It's also really common to go from this chord, start there, and then use it either as a transition or as something that resolves to a certain feeling. The beginning of Sail by AWOL Nation, let me see, I think it's... So this is a suspended chord, and then it ends up being a minor chord. So just kind of an idea of how that might actually be applied. In guitar, it's really common to talk not just about a suspended fourth, but they also say, well, what if instead of a 4, we play a second? They'll call those suspended second chords, or sus4 chords. And if you say that to a guitar player, they'll know exactly what you're talking about. If you're saying it to a piano player, they might be able to figure it out. Let's play what should be the suspended second. So I'll play the root and the 5, and then I'll play a 2, which means there's just going to be one semitone in the middle. This is what a guitar player would call a suspended second. But if you'll remember what we just learned about inversions, if you play this G down here, all of a sudden that's a G suspended fourth chord instead of a C suspended second. So I think that music theory generally tries to not have those overlaps. I don't know, but I just know that some people will probably correct you if you say suspended second chord, and that's why. But again, I want to emphasize that's a real chord. Nothing's stopping you from playing it. You absolutely can play that, and if writing down C suspended second in your notes helps you, that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Please do whatever you can to remember your music and note it down and stuff and share it with others. I mentioned before that between the root and the 5, there is a major and a minor third, no matter where you put that third. So in this case of a C major chord, there's a major third here and a minor third here. If I played a C minor chord, minor third here, major third here. What if I just played a minor third, followed by, skip 2, a minor third? That's even smaller jumps than a minor chord, which is why it's called diminished, because diminished means made even smaller, right? So that's a C diminished chord. If I play a major third, followed by, let's add 3 in the middle, another major third, that's an augmented chord. Augmented means even bigger, right? So even bigger is 2 majors, even smaller is 2 minor thirds. I think it's that simple. Maybe I'm oversimplifying it. That's, I guess, the point of the series. Anyway, where you would often see these chords, like jazz players love them, people love to play them as transitions. I don't fully understand resolving chords and things like that, but I think I can give a basic idea here. If I take a C major and I'm trying to move up to, just a D major, I could do this C sharp diminished, D. And so even though that sounds scary, to me at least, it sounds scary to see a C sharp diminished, I try to just think of it as C major but with a C sharp instead, which is kind of like saying a bicycle with one wheel instead of a unicycle. Unicycle means a bicycle with one wheel, bi means two, but sometimes I would just prefer to write down the thing that's simpler for me to understand unless I'm trying to communicate with another musician. So we have these diminished chords, and similarly we could have these augmented chords. And so they usually create some sort of tension that you want to resolve. So this just sounds all kind of clustered. This sounds maybe a little bit too far apart. And so the goal is to find something that sounds more stable. And that's where you should look to Adam Neely and other creators that know way more about that than I do, because I'm still learning all of that stuff. So I wasn't sure if I should discuss sevenths at the beginning or end of this video, because they made the biggest difference to me, and you're probably most likely to see them, but they're also probably the most complicated to describe. The good news, though, is that you just take the major or minor chord and you're only adding one extra note to it. Like I just discussed with those augmented chords and the way that, a fifth is just a stacked major and minor third, most chords that you see are just stacked major and minor chords, because you'll see, things that have sevenths, so 1, 3, 5, and 7, that's a major 7. This would technically be the 9, this would be the 11, I think. Don't ask me. I don't know much about those extensions further down, but my point is that they generally move by thirds when it comes to these harmonies. What we're going to do is we're going to take our C major, and if you see a chord that says C major 7, so MAJ 7, that's probably the easiest to play, because you're going to add the note that would be one semitone below the octave. So this is where that C is, one semitone below. That is the major 7th, because it is a major instead of a minor 7th from the root. And that's how you'd play a C major 7. Weirdly enough, if it says C7, even if you know it's a C major chord, if it doesn't say MAJ 7, it just says C7, you actually play B flat. You play the flat 7th. So if it doesn't specify, assume it is a major chord with a flat 7. If it says a major 7, then you play the major chord with a major 7th. If it says minor 7, you play the minor chord with a flat 7. So the difference between a C7 and a C minor 7 is very small. It's this E versus this E flat. The difference between a C major 7 and a C7 is similarly small. So it's the difference between this B and this B flat. Man, my hand is cramped because I got the keyboard on the desk, and so I'm doing this weird posture with it. So if you think to last lesson about inversions, there are 3 ways you could play major and minor chords, because there's just 3 notes, right? So I can play a C sharp minor here, I could play it here, or I could play it here. And obviously you can split them up however else you want, arrangement choices, etc. But I'm just saying that if I'm just looking at what I would play with the notes close to each other, there are 3 inversions. 7th chords have 4 notes, so there's more ways that you could possibly play. You could play a 7th chord like you'd normally expect. You could also move this B down here, though. I've heard these called cluster chords. I don't know if that's the technical term. You can move this G down here. Or I could just play it like that. So there's 4 different versions of that. And similarly, if I wanted to think about arrangement, I could just play the 1 and that major 7, and I could just play the 3 and the 5 down here. That might sound weird, but it's still technically a C major 7th chord. For this example, I'll just talk about walk downs in general. So walk downs are when the bass line is just gradually moving down. You hear this a lot in guitar songs and just songs in general, I guess. But what that would look like is I would go from here, which I'm playing the C in the bass note, and then a full C major chord here. Then I might move this one down to B. So instead of playing C, I'm playing a B. I'm playing the C, I'm now playing it basically as a C major 7 chord, but with no actual root note. So there are ways that you could incorporate these that it may seem intimidating to see C major 7/B, C7/B flat, B flat. That probably would have scared me a bit, but thankfully it's just like a slightly more technical way of describing just what if we move the C a whole bunch and then we end up on a B flat. So hopefully that makes some sense to you. Okay, that wraps up the whole series on chords. That's all I'm going to cover about chords, I think, because it's almost everything that I know about chords. So as far as what comes next, on your own, you'll probably want to switch out more of your songs that you're practicing with and work on different songs, maybe try some more advanced songs. I would say if you want to just get learning on your own, probably move next to like learning the pentatonic scale and then major and minor scale and then modes. I'm going to cover that in my next series, but who knows when I'll be done with that. So I recommend you spend time writing your own songs or going back to old songs of yours and trying to figure out what are the chords for the different parts. And just really get a lot of exposure to these concepts, because at least for me, that was absolutely crucial in making sure that I felt confident in my own music and working with other people. So I'm going to probably take a little bit of a break, depending on how this series goes and the next time I want to put this much effort into a video. But thank you for watching, and please let me know if you have any questions.